Hello again. For the best part of a week, I've been in the company of a couple of my grandchildren, a boy and a girl. They have both been raised in a very with it and modern way, with no imposition of gender roles or any of that business. The differences in temperament, though, as well as their emotional and psychological disposition, is plain to see. A little girl meeting other little girls who are strangers will often try to make friends by some cooperative venture in which they take turns and share things. Little boys, on the other hand, tend to compete and show off their physical prowess. It's not about cooperating and sharing. It is about establishing who is the most daring, who is strongest, and most likely to be able to dominate the others and be a leader. Many years ago, I ran toy libraries and mother and baby groups in the London borough of Hackney. And of course, this being Hackney in the 1980s, we ensured that there were no gender specific toys. The little boys were encouraged to play with miniature brooms and carpet sweepers, and we made sure the girls were provided with tiny spanners and toy cars. It was a hopeless enterprise from the start. The boys used to race around holding the brooms as though they were assault rifles, and they drove the carpet sweepers up and down, making vroom vroom motorbike noises rather than using them to tidy up the play space. One little girl drew faces on the spanners and pretended they were her babies. This kind of thing begins long before society has a chance to indoctrinate them with the correct gender roles, and many of the parents there were left-wing types who did their damnedest to make their sons caring and gentle, and the daughters tough and fearless. They needn't really have bothered. The sexes are different from birth, and there's little to be done about it. This was, by the way, the time when I was officially black, which I only found out about by sheer chance. I belonged to the union NUPE at that time, the National Union of Public Employees. It doesn't exist anymore. And this was at a time when they were pioneering the idea of black sections. I had an inquiry and I rang the local branch secretary of NUPE, who told me that because I was black, I had to contact another number for the black sections. As I'm sure viewers can readily imagine, the news that I was black came as something of a surprise to me, and so I asked in a very diffident way if they were sure that I was in fact black. It turned out to be perfectly true. Because the management committee and the majority of staff, in fact all except me, at the Hackney Toy Libraries Association were black, it was listed as a black voluntary organisation, and this meant that all NUPE members of staff automatically belonged to the black sections. They became black. As it happened, this worked to my advantage, and I didn't argue the point, and so remained black all the time that I was working in Hackney. I'm digressing a little, aren't I? Being male or female is inextricably linked to the biological body in which you were born. And although there are occasional cases of babies which are intersex, what we used to call hermaphrodites, this is very rare. Most of us have the same gender as our biological sex, and this is quite natural. The relatively new ideology that males and females are really the same inside and that one can easily switch back and forth between them as the mood takes you is similar in many ways to the equalitarian dogma, which is also very fashionable at the moment. This holds that black people and white, Chinese people and Indians, Eskimos and pygmies are all the same inside, just as men and women are the same, and that all differences, whether of gender or ethnicity, are cultural and imposed by society. This is precisely how many people now feel about gender, that, like race, it too is a social construct, and that once we abandon these foolish ideas, then we can simply accept that every human being enters the world with the same capacity for genius, equal opportunity to ability to grow up to be somebody who nurtures a child, and that nobody has any more disposition to aggressive behaviour or a desire to dominate others than any other newborn baby. This is a lovely and utopian dream, but I'm afraid the evidence for such an optimistic view of humanity is, to say the least of it, scanty. Modern ideas about gender and ethnicity both rely upon dogma and ideology rather than empirical conclusions.